Leaving Wiltshire and heading into Cornwall, I stopped at a place called the Route 303 American Bar and Grill. It was a nice little taste of home, and the inside was great. If you're running through this way, I recommend the stop. Driving into Cornwall, there was a drastic change in the roads. It reminded me of driving in Western Ireland, as the roads began to narrow and the shoulders gave way to hedges. Driving in these areas is one of the highlights for me, but to less experienced drivers, or to people who are a little skittish, it may be very disconcerting. For me, the place to go in Cornwall was Tintagel. It's a great little town with so much to do and see. However, upon my arrival, the weather turned very bad, with heavy rains and strong winds. I had to look for some inside things to do. This medieval hall house turned out to be one of the highlights of the entire trip for me. It is remarkably well maintained and preserved, part of the National Trust, and open to the public. So if you visit Tintagel, going inside here is an absolute must. Dating from around 1380, this building is a rare surviving example of a Cornish hall house. Full of antique furniture and furnishings. Walking through this house is really like walking back in time. While most of the house is original, all repairs and upkeep are done with traditional methods, keeping the old structure authentic. This seems very typical of British historical sites. Pride and attention to detail keep British history alive, and it's always impressive to me. Hands-on history in Britain is the best I've seen anywhere. I loved being able to climb this ladder-like staircase, just to have a look at the house from the loft. This is what I mean by hands-on history. You can just walk through this house on your own, surrounded by objects of great value, and explore it as you see fit, spending as much time in an area as you want. It's a great experience. One of the most impressive things about the house was the roof. Some rough-cut timber, some stacked stone, some whitewash, and a lot of time and craftsmanship was enough to keep the weather out perfectly. Even though the weather was bad, I still enjoyed a walk in the back garden. I especially liked the angled stacked stone wall. And it was nice to get a clear look at the stone shingles. The whole structure is impressive, inside and out. It seems so simple, yet so permanent and well built. You can't help but admire all aspects of its architecture. After spending a good bit at the house, I decided to walk directly across the street to the King Arthur's Arms, where I enjoyed some really good food and far too much draft beer. Seeing the weather getting worse and worse, I just stayed here for the rest of the night and had a good time with a lot of fun people. The next morning, I woke up nice and early. I had a great breakfast and drank about a gallon of water before I fell up to exploring King Arthur's castle. The tide is still high, so I can't start at the bottom in Merlin's cave, and I'm going to have to revisit it later. But keep an eye on this waterfall as I go on. It can give you some perspective as I get closer to the top. Some of these staircases feel just like climbing ladders. They are exceptionally steep. and a strong gust of wind will make you grab quickly for the railing. But the views at the top are well worth it. Now this castle has a long-standing association with the legend of King Arthur. It is mentioned in Historia Regum Britanniae as the place of Arthur's conception, but never held by Arthur himself. The whole issue is of course debatable, and there's many sources that dispute these claims altogether. But in the end, I don't care either way. I will enjoy it all the same. While I was here, there was an active archaeological dig in progress, so some parts of the site was off limits. The foundations and a few partial walls is all that's left of this castle, and even the partials were rebuilt in the 1800s. There's a lot of info on display about this place, and a lot of stories from the history of this castle. If you want to read them, just hit pause. Given how bad the weather was just yesterday, I could not have asked for a better day to be up here. The view from up here is also one of the best I've seen anywhere. The beautiful coastline stretches for miles, and on a clear day like this, you can see almost all of it. There are many great walking paths along this coastline that offer great views of the ocean, the cliffs, and the castle. After walking around a few hours, finally, the tide is lowered enough where I can get into Merlin's cave. Finished in 2016, Merlin's face was carved into the rock here by artist Peter Graham. I enjoyed sitting on the cool walls of Merlin's cave. After the long walk, it felt great. Hearing the sea crash in from the other side made it easy to relax and think. It was here I first decided to go end to end. I wanted to see as much of this island nation as possible. And in my next video, it's Land's End and the Cotswolds. Thanks for watching.